The human brain is neurologically incapable of regulating intense stress and cognitive overwhelm when you refer to yourself in the first person. By simply thinking the word I, you trigger an immediate loop of self-referential threat processing that paralyzes your executive functions. Modern neuroimaging reveals that a singular linguistic shift, replacing I with your own name, instantly deactivates the emotional alarm center of your brain and forces the logical prefrontal networks to seize control. This is not a motivational trick. It is a hardwired biological override key that rewires your cognitive architecture in real time. When you experience cognitive overload, your internal monologue typically accelerates into a frantic loop of self-directed panic. You tell yourself, "I have too much to do," or "I am never going to finish this project on time." What you do not realize is that this specific first-person framing is a neurological trap. When you refer to yourself as I, you activate a deeply embedded neural network known as the default mode network, specifically the medial prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. This network is responsible for self-reflection, but when stressed, it transforms into an amplifier for anxiety, constantly looping your perceived failures and limitations. You are essentially trapped inside your own subjective panic, unable to access the higher-order reasoning required to solve the task in front of you. To break this loop, we must exploit a phenomenon known as psychological distance. In 2014, pioneering neuroscientist Dr. Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan published a groundbreaking study demonstrating the profound impact of self-talk on emotional regulation. Dr. Kross and his research team placed participants under intense social and cognitive stress, tracking their neural activity using functional magnetic resonance imaging. They discovered that individuals who used first-person self-talk showed massive activation in the brain's threat detection centers, leading to cognitive paralysis. However, the group instructed to use non-first-person self-talk, referring to themselves by their own name, or using third-person pronouns like he, she, or they, exhibited a completely different neural profile. Their amygdala activity plummeted, while their lateral prefrontal cortex, the seat of cognitive control and decision-making, flared to life. Think of your brain as a chaotic, high-pressure boardroom. When you use the word I, you are standing directly in the center of the room while everyone is screaming at you. You cannot see the exits, and you cannot think clearly because you are the target of the noise. But when you switch to your own name, it is as if you instantly step out of the room, walk up to the observation deck, and look down through a glass window. You are no longer the panic. You are now the objective manager observing the panic. How many times today did you silently scream, "I can't handle this," while staring at a wall of unread notifications? This simple question reveals the default setting of your mental operating system, a setting that is actively sabotaging your focus by keeping you locked in subjective distress. The shift to the third person creates a linguistic buffer, convincing the brain that the threat is happening to someone else, which immediately frees up the cognitive bandwidth required to solve the actual problem. This linguistic shift is the dividing line between cognitive exhaustion and effortless executive execution. When you operate in the first person during high-stress work scenarios, your working memory is actively hijacked by emotional processing. Your brain is dedicating valuable glucose and oxygen to managing the threat of failure instead of executing the task at hand. This is why you can stare at a single paragraph for 20 minutes without processing a single word. Your prefrontal cortex is starved of resources because the amygdala is hogging the blood flow. It works instantly. Consider the stark contrast in real-world performance. Imagine two professionals facing an identical high-stakes deadline. The first professional internalizes the stress, constantly thinking, "How am I going to explain this if I fail?" Their neural pathways are flooded with cortisol, narrowing their focus down to survival instincts, making creative problem-solving anatomically impossible. The second professional applies the linguistic override. They look at the screen and think, "What is the very next step that Michael needs to take to resolve this bottleneck?" Suddenly, the brain perceives the scenario as a puzzle to be solved for someone else. Humans are historically far better at solving other people's problems than their own because we lack the emotional bias. By speaking to yourself as another person, you inherit that objective clarity. This physiological reality was further validated in 2017 by Dr. Jason Moser at Michigan State University. Dr. Moser utilized electroencephalography to measure the electrical activity of the brain during periods of intense emotional distress. The findings were staggering. When participants switched to third-person self-talk, their emotional brain activity dropped significantly within mere milliseconds of the linguistic shift. More importantly, the study proved that this cognitive regulation required absolutely no extra effort from the participant. It is a zero-cost cognitive hack. Most productivity advice tells you that you need to build more willpower or develop deep emotional resilience through hours of daily meditation. This is a complete scientific myth. Willpower is a highly volatile, exhaustible resource that drains your glucose levels. You do not need more willpower. You need a more efficient routing system for your neural signals. Third-person self-talk bypasses the need for willpower entirely by changing the structural representation of the threat itself. You are not fighting the wave of overwhelm, you are simply redirecting the current so that it powers your analytical systems instead of drowning them. To integrate this cognitive bypass into your daily workflow, you must move beyond occasional use and implement structured, repeatable protocols. The first protocol is the name-based cognitive reset. This technique must be applied within the first 60 seconds of recognizing physical symptoms of stress, such as a racing heart, shallow breathing, or a sudden urge to check social media to escape a difficult task. The moment these indicators appear, you must close your eyes and silently state 3 objective, third-person observations using your own name. For example, you would think, Thomas is currently experiencing a physiological stress response. Thomas has a draft that requires revision. Thomas knows how to execute the first sentence. By using your name 3 consecutive times in a structured format, you force a rapid down-regulation of the amygdala. The brain processes your own name as an external social cue, mimicking the comforting, authoritative voice of an objective mentor. This instantly halts the emotional escalation, allowing your prefrontal cortex to reclaim executive control over your working memory. The second protocol is the Future Self Executive Briefing, designed to be executed during the first 10 minutes of your workday. Instead of writing a standard first-person to-do list, which often induces anxiety, you will write a brief, third-person narrative action plan for your day. You will physically write down statements such as, "Today, Sarah will allocate 90 minutes of uninterrupted focus to the statistical analysis. Sarah will turn off all notifications during this block. Once completed, Sarah will review the slide deck." This shifting of the narrative to the third person activates your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for goal-directed planning and cognitive flexibility. By reading your own schedule as if it were a set of strategic instructions prepared for an elite specialist, you eliminate the emotional friction of task initiation. You are no longer negotiating with your own procrastination, you are simply executing a highly precise operational plan designed for a specific agent. The third protocol is the post-failure autopsy, a technique to be used immediately following a major mistake, missed deadline, or critical feedback. The natural human tendency is to spiral into a destructive loop of self-criticism, using phrases like, "I always mess this up," or "Why can't I stay focused?" This default response solidifies negative neural pathways and increases future task avoidance. To prevent this, you must conduct a 5-minute written audit of the event, speaking strictly in the third person. Write down the sequence of events. What factors led to David missing the deadline? David underestimated the time required for data validation. What system will David implement next time to prevent this error? This shift in pronoun usage suppresses the emotional default mode network and activates the task positive network. You transition from a state of emotional victimhood to a state of scientific curiosity, treating your own behavior as an objective data point to be analyzed and optimized. Take a moment to reflect on the current state of your internal monologue. How much of your daily mental energy is being completely wasted on managing the subjective drama of the self? When you master this linguistic tool, a profound shift occurs in how you perceive your own consciousness. You stop viewing your brain as an unruly emotional adversary that you must constantly fight, cajole, or force into submission. Instead, you begin to see it for what it truly is, a highly complex biological computer that simply operates on specific inputs and outputs. You realize that your thoughts are not commands, they are merely neurological suggestions generated by survival networks that have not updated since the Stone Age. You no longer internalize stress as a personal identity. You do not say, "I am stressed," but rather, the biological system is currently processing a high volume of stimuli. This level of psychological distance grants you an extraordinary level of mental toughness. You become the quiet, calm observer, standing in the storm of your own biology, directing the lightning of your focus precisely where it needs to land. You are no longer the victim of your brain's evolutionary quirks. You are the elite programmer recoding its software on the fly. The architecture of your focus is determined entirely by the grammar of your mind. Do not leave your cognitive performance to the mercy of an untrained internal monologue. Apply the third-person protocol to your very next task and observe the immediate stillness that takes over your prefrontal cortex. Optimize your neural pathways, master the language of your executive brain, and operate at the absolute ceiling of your biological potential. The mechanics of focus run far deeper than the words we speak to ourselves. There is another, even more fundamental neural pathway that governs your cognitive endurance, one that most people are actively destroying every single morning without even realizing it. We will uncover this hidden bottleneck next.